Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, I want to start a series on Microsoft Azure Virtual Networking. This is going to be the first of the series, Introduction to Azure Networking. It does not matter whether you are a beginner in cloud computing or you are looking to enhance your Azure skill. This video is going to give you a foundational understanding of Azure Networking and its key components. Here on the agenda, we will briefly introduce what Azure Networking is. We'll talk about the importance of Azure Networking, and we are also going to look at the key services of Azure Networking. Now, this first video is going to be purely theory. We just explain what Azure Networking is. In our next video, we are going to do hands-on lab where we'll log in into Azure and create a virtual network or even see, everything around virtual network. So, what is Azure Networking? Azure Networking is representing networking, just as the name says. Consider a scenario where you have an on-premises infrastructure, the traditional networking that you have, where you set up your routers, your switches, your firewall, load balancers, and so on and so forth. The purpose of you setting up a networking, whether in your on-prem, is mainly for connectivity. Likewise, for you to connect resources in Azure, connect one resource to the other, connect one cloud environment to another cloud service provider, or even to connect to your on-premises environment, Azure Networking is what is powering that. So, if I will say, Azure Networking is the backbone of Microsoft Azure Cloud Infrastructure. It consists of a set of tools that allow you, the administrator, to design, deploy, and manage networks within Azure Cloud. Like I said, it's similar to your traditional on-premises network that you have set up. With Azure Networking, you can create isolated networks that is called virtual network. So whatever network you create in Azure, it is called virtual network. You can also call it VNet. That's a short name. So I might be calling it VNet virtual network interchangeably. Now you can also further subnet or segment a larger virtual network or a larger network in Azure. You can further segment it into a smaller network. This segmentation or breaking down of larger network into smaller one is called subnetting. So Azure Network, after even subnetting, you can go further to say you want to control and manage the traffic, the flow of traffic within Azure. To do this, you'll be making use of network security groups. Azure Networking allow you to securely connect resources in Azure and even extend to your on-premises infrastructure and other cloud environment. So that's where we talk about hybrid cloud or multi-cloud environment. Let's now take a quick look at the different services that make up the Azure networking in Azure. The first one that we'll be talking about is the virtual network. Azure Virtual Network simply called VNets, is the foundation of Azure networking that provide isolated environments for resources. Look at a situation where you have an organization, a large organization that have multiple um, multiple entities, and each of these entities want to be able to send traffic across the network or have their own separate network. So even if you are within the same tenant, what you can do is to create a virtual network for each of the entities. That way, their traffic can pass without crossing paths. Every virtual network you create in Azure cannot talk to the other virtual network without additional configuration and components. So if an entity then come and say they need a way to further segment their big network into smaller ones so that they can host all database on a particular IP range, host all applications on another set of IP range, host all middleware or web servers on another set of IP range, or even have a DMC. Then you can break this big network into smaller ones. That is where that's what is called subnetting. So that's where subnet comes in. Now, after creating your subnet, you create your resources like virtual machines. You need a way to control what traffic is going in and out of your virtual machines. In order to control traffic, both inbound and outbound traffic, you'll be using network security group. So network security group allow you to be able to control traffic in and out of your virtual machines in Azure using port, IP, and protocol or services combination. What if you have multiple virtual machines and you want a way to ensure that these virtual machines, because they are running the same services. So look at situation where you have peak period for or festive season and your e-commerce website. You needed to increase the instance of the VM that is serving that site. Now, after increasing the instances, you want to ensure that it's not just a single instance that is responding to all requests from your customers, but that the requests are being spread across the instances or the servers within the group of virtual machines that you have created for this service. So you will be using Azure Load Balancer to achieve that. It helps you to distribute the traffic across multiple virtual machines. This way, you ensure a highly available and reliable um, services for your customer. Then we have Azure Virtual Gateway. Consider a situation where you have your on-premises environment and you want to enable what we call hybrid networking or hybrid configuration. This way, you need to ensure that resources in Azure can talk or communicate with resources on-prem and vice versa. To achieve this, you'll be using Azure VPN Gateway to configure site-to-site IPsec tunnel to your on-premises gateway. That your on-premises gateway can be a firewall or can be a router that can do IPsec tunnel, right? Then you can also use the VPN gateway to configure what we call point-to-site VPN that allow a single computer on the internet to talk to either a single resource or a group of resources within your Azure infrastructure. This is not only for on-premises or internet user connection. You can also use it to configure VNet peering, where you want to connect two virtual networks together to be able to share traffic. Then we move quickly to Azure Traffic Manager. Unlike the load balancer, Azure Traffic Manager helps to control or distribute traffic to resources across Azure region. So the load balancer distributes traffic across multiple virtual machines, but the traffic manager distributes traffic, taking it from one region to another region within Azure data centers or Azure infrastructure. Then Azure Bastion is a remote desktop, that's RDP, or an HTTP, or RDP and SSH connection too, that allow you to securely connect to your virtual machine without exposing the ports that SSH or RDP use to attackers. So Azure Bastion is used within the browser, and it is securely connect within Azure Portal without going out of the Azure Portal itself. Then we have Azure DNS. Azure DNS is a domain naming hosting system that is hosted within Azure. It allows you to quickly resolve and resolve queries for your services that are hosted in Azure or even outside of Azure. You can consider this or relate it to your GoDaddy. If you purchase a domain at GoDaddy, right, you need a way to host the DNS services so that services that are hosted in your infrastructure, if they are published and supposed to be accessible on the internet, when user make request for that service, GoDaddy gets to understand, take this request and direct your request to the server where the service is located. The same thing is what Azure Networking is doing. Azure DNS is doing. Then finally is Azure Firewall. Azure Firewall is an advanced level of network security group. It goes beyond controlling traffic using the combination, using the port, IP, and protocol combination. It enable, uh, uh, um, it is able to do what we call stateful packet inspection for both inbound and outbound traffic for all ports and protocols. Moving on, let's look at the importance of Azure networking. One of the importance is ensuring security. Security features like NSG and Azure Firewall help you to protect your resources from unauthorized access within Azure. Then we have scalability. Consider a situation where you set up an on-premises infrastructure or on-premise networking. You have purchased your switch. Let's say the switch is a 10 by 100 port switches, or is even a gigabit port switches. And in the nearest future, you need to be able to pass traffic that is up to a 10G speed. You cannot do this unless you purchase a new switch that have this capability. But within Azure, you don't have to do that. You can scale as your business grows. Another importance is performance optimization. So Azure Global Network Infrastructure ensure low latency because of the backbone the backbone of Azure networking is actually on a very, very high bandwidth speed. Is you do things at the speed of light. So this is a very, very important aspect or important uh, reason for Azure networking to ensure low latency and high throughput, enhancing application performance. And finally, is the global reach. With the data centers worldwide, you can deploy applications closer to your users, ensuring fast access and compliance with local regulations. Consider a situation where some services need to be hosted within a particular region. So you can set up your Azure tenant or services closer to this region so that you don't go outside of your compliance, outside of compliance or what is permitted for your type of business. To recap all we have talked about so far, we've discussed the networking as a HIM connectivity uh, from on-premises and other type of network to Azure. We talk about traffic management, the using of NSG, ASG, that's Application Security Group, Azure Firewall. We talk about traffic manager. We talk about load sharing. We talk about DNS and subnetting. So you can see that Azure Networking is a powerful tool for building secure, scalable, and high performance network in the cloud. We've covered what Azure Networking is, why it's important, and some of its key services. And this wraps up this video. In our next video, we'll take this concept a bit further with a hands-on lab where we will see how Azure Network work in action. We'll see it in action. So make sure you watch out for the video. So I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and please, if you like this video, please do subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share